What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a new Fantasy Football Scout video. We're talking Gameweek 2 transfers this week. My name is Ted, and I'm joined by my guest, Late Riser. How was your game week, Late Riser? How was it going?
How are you going? How are you doing, Ted? Long time coming. I think this chat between us. We've been interacting a lot on Twitter. So great to finally chat with you. And yeah, I'm in a happy space. More than anything else, I'm relieved because I had an absolute disaster of a start at the start of last season, and was dreading game week 1 this time around. So played it fairly safe, and it worked out. Scored 107 points, and just relieved. Honestly, just relieved.
That's absolutely incredible. I'm really happy for you, mate, because I know how much you struggled last season. And I think, well, we've got your rank up on the screen, 95,000 game week rank, which is incredible. I'm up in the millions, up near the 2 million. I was 20 odd points less than you, mainly because of the one and only Mr. Bruno Fernandes, who I have omitted from my team rather mistakenly, which was a bit torturous. But, absolutely fantastic. 107 is the perfect way to start a game week, right? You must be happy.
Absolutely. Very, very, very happy. Just, but the thing is, it's all downhill from here, right? It's getting 100.
Oh, I hope
that's
not.
the worry.
I mean, it's like the Twitter picks, the community picks have all hauled this game week, haven't they? So everyone's doing well. So surely not. It can't continue for the rest of the season that everyone's, conjecture picks are just going to consistently perform. We know it, right? We know that next week's going to be a 30-point average game week. You just know it.
And
right.
Next, I'm calling it now. Next week's highest scorer is going to be Romelu Lukaku, who nobody's going to own, and then everybody's going to go into chaos. How do you transfer and get another big hitter who's costing us 11.5 million? I think that's what's going to happen.
We're only 2 minutes in, Pranil. You can't just throw a bombshell like that. Lukaku highest scorer. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised, and that would throw the cat amongst the pigeons, wouldn't it? Right. I mean,
absolutely.
Let's get on to some of the content. Before we take a look at some of how we got on with our teams in Game Week 1, and then look at how our teams are shaping up for Game Week 2, let's just have a look at some of the key performers from Game Week 1. And I've got this chance diagram here that I've produced. This is basically just stating the top 10 performers in each of the 4 main attacking categories. That's small chances created in red, small chances, which are the difficult shots, big chances, which are the easy ones, and the big chances created in white, which are the big chances created, the assisting players that have really set up some clear-cut opportunities for their teammates. And I mean, it's an interesting look at initially. We've got Antonio on 3 big chances, and I mean that was a crazy game, wasn't it, Pranil? West Ham were awesome, weren't they?
It was so good, and credit to them because they switched up in the second half where Antonio actually started playing a little deeper in that game. They were struggling a little bit in the first half, but I think the change that they made at the start of the second half absolutely clicked. Even Benrahma, he wasn't getting a lot of the ball in the first half. Fornals and Bowen weren't finding him as much as they should, and he started getting a lot more of the ball in the second half because Antonio was sort of moving a little deeper, and it worked for them. Newcastle defensively have things to do. They put on a great show in the first half, especially in attack. I mean, Saint Max was at the top of his game. The first assist for that Wilson game was absolutely sensational. But yeah, that's what Antonio does. There's a great article on Scout which FPL Virgin actually mentioned where they talk about last season. Antonio had the highest percentage of shots from inside the 6-yard box when he scored a goal. So this data that we see game week 1 is in congruence with what happened last season.
Absolutely. I mean, he loves to miss from like 2 yards out, Antonio, doesn't he? But I mean, he just gets in those positions anyway, and that's got to be encouragement enough to actually own him. But I completely agree with you what you're saying about Saint-Maximin. He was incredible. I didn't watch the game live, but I watched the highlights. What just an entertaining player to watch. I mean, some of the stats actually don't do him justice because the expected goals, the expected assists, they don't actually take into account the chances that aren't connected with. So if you talk about the expected threat, which is this new measure, he would have been off the charts in that game. The amount of opportunities that he created, absolutely incredible. Yeah. But he always sucks us in, doesn't he, Saint-Maximin? Always talented, but then he never maintains that fitness, does he?
Yep, that's the problem.
So you have Ben Rama in your team, and you must have foresaw a West Ham strength there. What do you think about Ben Rama? Is he going to be next year's Lingard or this year's Lingard?
The rumors are that Lingard actually could be joining West Ham as well, and the murmurs started happening just before game week 1 as well. But he had a really strong preseason, and whichever Brentford fan or anybody who watches the championship who I've spoken to, they said that when Watkins, Benrahma, and Mbeumo were playing for Brentford in that season, Benrahma was the most talented one. So I think what happened last season was just a little bit of a period where he didn't settle in the league immediately. He's also not your typical Moyes player, because he was trying too hard. He was just continuously dribbling with the ball and not making the correct decisions. And what switched my mind about Benrahma was the preseason game where Benrahma had a shot on goal, but he saw that Antonio was open. This was the last game before the season started, and he just made that pass to him. It was a great pass, and I think, this guy is maturing and he's ready for the Premier League. So he's in, and very happy with that purchase.
That's some great insight. Something just clicks in your head, and you go, "Oh, this guy's matured a lot. Get him in," and it's clearly paid off for you straight away. Let's have another look at some of these players on this chart, some standout. Obviously, we've got the likes of Fernandes and Salah. They sort of go without saying. But, I mean, Tierney, a lot of chances created, not necessarily big ones, but he stood out in that Arsenal game. The problem with Arsenal is they conceded to Brentford. So defensive solidity is a problem, Pranil.
Yeah, the thing is that somebody who they rely on in midfield, Thomas Partey, I'm expecting him to be fit around the game week 4 mark. And that's when Arsenal's run really begins. So it's just something to take a note of in case you're in for in the market for a defender around game week 4. Because Tierney was absolutely great. I thought he was really, really good. The problem with Tierney is, again, his fitness. How long is he going to be playing? But the advantage with Arsenal is they're going to be playing once a week. There's no European football for them this season. So I do see an uptick in their performances when they have the good run, Game Week 4 onwards.
Yeah, definitely someone on my radar. And as you say, it's a really good point. They don't have Europe. So fitness might not be too much of an issue for Tierney if he can get back and play consistently. He's such an attacking talent on that left side. So, yeah. Definitely one to keep an eye on. Let's talk about the main man, the actual subject of this video, which is a little bit clickbaity, but Paul Pogba, who was exceptional for Man United. And I don't really want to talk about Man United because they kind of hurt me this year. And I was incredibly worried watching that game live. It just looks super streamlined. And maybe that was stemming from Paul Pogba. So what do you reckon? Is he someone that you potentially bring in, or is he just someone that you wait and see? What's the dynamic in that Man United team? How is it going to change?
At the moment, at the same price point, I actually prefer Mason Greenwood to Paul Pogba. I think Fernandes and Shaw are going to probably be your top 2 picks if you're looking at somebody from the United midfield. And then next up, I'd rather go for Greenwood because he played striker, and Cavani is going to join training, I think today or tomorrow. So it's going to be a while before he's match fit. The problem with Pogba is he had that free role on the left-hand side, which he's great at. But I think Solskjaer was very aware that he'll need the legs of Fred and McTominay against a Leeds United. I wouldn't be surprised if Pogba plays in the pivot and we accommodate another attacker in some of the fixtures henceforth because you don't need that much running against the other teams that we're going to face. So I wouldn't jump on. He's a great player, but I wouldn't jump on immediately. If you're looking for a solid pick, my recommendation would be Greenwood. I thought he looked absolutely great as well. Pogba was on the money as well, but I just think Greenwood's a better call for FPL purposes.
Greenwood is incredibly clinical, isn't he? And that's the worry, I suppose, with Pogba, that his attacking potential can change by the mere flick of a switch by Solskjaer just to move him into a different position. And therefore, he's just pulled in on the reins a little bit. So definitely one to keep an eye on. I don't think I'd be rushing to get him in either. But Man United in general, right, were excellent. I guess that's a really good point to make, that because Game Week 1 is one of those game weeks where we still have people coming back from the Euros, we still have some injuries to contend with, that a lot of these teams, the dynamic, the lineups, they're going to change quite dramatically in the next few weeks. So I don't think we should make any rash decisions just yet, but certainly that Man United performance was encouraging and exciting. And definitely makes me wish I had Fernandes, but we'll come across it. We'll come back to that. So let's
talk about somebody you did have, and that's Heung-min Son, somebody who's on the top of my watch list. I see he's had 5 small chances. What do you make of his performance?
I thoroughly enjoyed that game, not because Son returned and redeemed my judgment for going without Fernandes, but just the fact that Spurs managed to beat City in a game which was cagey for a number of reasons, but I dramatically underestimated Spurs. I thought that they were excellent in that game, and Nuno's clearly worked some magic. But it just makes me think, even without Harry Kane, Spurs can be an attacking force regardless of the players that they play. Dele Alli was pretty instrumental in that midfield. Definitely one to keep an eye on at 6.5. But Son, he took his chance well, didn't he? He's one of the most clinical players in the league, and he's got great fixtures coming up. So are you eyeing him up?
Yeah, he's actually on top of my watch list at the moment, but it's so difficult to accommodate him because. So I'm thinking of. We'll talk about my transfers later, but he's at a tricky price point, right? At 10 million. If you own Salah and Bruno, to fit Son in, to shoehorn him into your team requires a little bit of surgery, and that's the problem. He's got a really good bunch of fixtures. The next 3 games should suit him as well. What I like about him is, he's clinical, he's roaming around, he's playing closer to goal. Even in the press conference before game week 1, Nuno mentioned that he likes Son closer to goal. He likes him central, and he's on all set pieces as well. And the set pieces that he took, they were of high quality as well. So if a certain Kane is leaving Spurs as well, he's probably going to be on pens as well. So he looks good for a 200-point season at the moment.
Absolutely, and he's pretty consistent with that. So I think he was 200 points or 220 points last season as well. Yeah. So clearly a very good option, and I think almost a game week 3 captaincy pick home to Watford. I think it is when Salah has Chelsea. I think Fernandes has Wolves away, doesn't he?
Yeah. The thing with the Son is that the City game actually kind of suited Spurs because they like playing on the break, and City were a little weak also. I thought their defense was fairly open quite a few times. It was fairly easy for Spurs to break as well. Even Lucas Moura, when he's running at those defenders, he's so good. But I wonder how they'll do against a defense that like Watford that's parking the bus. That's something we don't know yet. I think in a game like that somebody like a Dele Alli could be more useful because I won't expect him to play. He sat in a 3 along with Skip and Højbjerg in this game. I'm expecting to play sort of like a 10 support striker sort of role in those games.
I completely agree with you, and it's some great insight there because I remember so many times that Son has an easy fixture on paper last season and just completely blanked. He wasn't in the game at all. He was completely anonymous, and that's because they sit deep, their opponents, and he doesn't have that joy from breaking on the shoulder. And that's something that we're seeing so far in game week 1. The change in the VAR rules, a lot of teams focusing on just feeding that ball to the player on the shoulder, because they're going to get the benefit of the doubt with the offside rule. So Son's clearly benefited that from game week 1. So it's interesting to think that you are maybe not going to go with Son because he might struggle in the easier fixtures. Is that what your thought is?
Yeah, but like a lot of people are thinking about waiting a week to get Son because the fixture on paper looks like good fixture on paper looks like Watford at home in game week 3. But I actually like him for the game week 2 fixture against Wolves a lot because what we've read and heard about Bruno Lage, he likes to actually press quite a bit. And what you see there in your chart there is Vardy had 6 small chances. And if Son gets the same quantum of small chances, he's the best finisher in the league, arguably. At the moment, he's going to put a couple of them inside the goal. So I like this fixture, the Game Week 2 fixture for Sonny.
I completely agree. You want to play against attacking teams. Absolutely. Yeah. Right, anyone else on this chart that stands out to you? I think maybe it's time to move on. I think maybe the only one that I would mention is Calvert-Lewin at Southampton.
Yes.
It was an interesting one, actually, because there was talk about how they, on Match of the Day, how they said that they were just aiming to feed that ball in, cross the ball in every single opportunity to Calvert-Lewin. And that is exactly what you want as an FPL owner. So he could be an option. I mean, Everton have got good fixtures, and I guess it's worth seeing how Everton have set up. But clearly, they were going all out to make Calvert-Lewin the target man in those games. So is he on your watch list?
Yeah, I think 30% of FPL at the moment owns Danny Ings. And I think all 30% of us have thought about DCL as an option to move into in Game Week 4. I think DCL Raul Jimenez and Bamford are going to be vying for our attention in a couple of game weeks, because all three of them, DCL already has a good run of fixtures and the other two have a good run of fixtures game week 4 onwards. So definitely on the watch list.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a shift in fixtures from game week 4. That would be one to keep an eye on. I mean, it's the skill, isn't it, from moving from one player to another when there's some upside there. I think that's what we should focus on. Okay, let's move on to talk about your team, how you got on from for game week 1. So let's move on. 107 points, absolutely incredible. For those who are maybe listening, not watching, you've got Sanchez in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, Webster, that's double Brighton defence, Salah captain, Fernandes, Jota, Benrahma, Antonio, Ings and Tony. Why don't you talk us through why you picked that team just very briefly in the first place, and what you liked about it?
So the double Brighton defence, because of the fixtures and because of their expected stats, obviously destroyed in the first couple of minutes. But it's something you persist with. I'm expecting maybe 2 or 3 clean sheets in the first 6. That's what I told myself I'd be okay with. Trent, best defender of the game, ended the season really strongly last year as well. And with Van Dijk back, I think he's going to get a few more assists on set pieces as well. Luke Shaw, great underlying numbers last season at the back of a great Euros as well. I was very impressed with him in game week 1. He was making good runs. He had a good shot as well. So no problems in defense. Salah, Fernandes, 2 best picks in the game in that premium bracket, both coming through game week 1, which was nice to see. What I like about Salah, and there's a little bit of a Salah versus Fernandes debate for the captaincy in game week 2. I think Salah's a bit of a monster in the final 20 minutes, where more often than not, Klopp subs somebody off. I think Firmino is also really good for Salah compared to Jota, and he tends to get a lot of his points in the last 20 minutes. I think it's the first time Liverpool are playing at Anfield as well in 18 months, and I think they'll be up for it. Jota, very happy with his return. In FPL, I always talk about keeping yourself in a position to get lucky. And I thought Jota was one of the few players priced at 7.5 million who had brace potential game week 1. So I was willing to put him in for the upside. Benrahma and Antonio, we already spoken about. Very happy with those picks. Ings didn't do anything in game week 1. I thought all of us Ings owners need to consider ourselves very, very lucky based on what we were able to do. The encouraging thing about Ings is that they have Newcastle at home next, we saw how the Newcastle defense fared in game week 1. So hoping that something comes of that. Ivan Toney, he's got a little bit of a Berbatov streak about him, where he's so aware of all the players around him, the one-touch passes and flicks. I quite like that about him. I'm willing to give him time at 6.5 million. That said, Toney out is one of the plans that I'm thinking about when we talk about the transfer plans that I have later.
Goodness me, that's I would have thought you'd give him a little bit more time in that exciting Brentford team, but clearly you have some logic behind it. I mean, let's switch to how you're seeing how you're lining up for game week 2, and let's talk about your players. The first question I had on my list was, what do you think about Trent in that first game week? I don't think he had too many attacking involvements. I think he created a couple of chances and he had a free kick, but there were a few other players that stood out more than him. And against Norwich, you maybe would have expected to see a few more chances created. Too early to worry, clearly, but is there? I mean, Tsimikas was I thought was fantastic. Obviously, he won't continue to play once Robbo's back, but are you vaguely worried about Trent?
Not at all. I think the chances he created were really good. So even though he didn't really get the quantity, I thought the quality of the chances were really good. And I'm expecting Fabinho to start in midfield in game week 2 as well. I thought the Liverpool midfield was a little light with Milner and Ox and Keita. I'm expecting Fabinho and Thiago to be blended in fairly in some time, and expecting their performances to be stronger. I think the Anfield effect will come into play in gaming 2. I'm not worried about it.
I completely agree. I think Anfield will be rocking home to Burnley. I think that's probably why Salah seems to be the best captain. I think a lot of people will be tempted to go Fernandes, but I think Salah at home, Anfield for the first time this season, probably convinces us. I was going to ask you about the Brighton defence. Are you at all worried about how Watford completely rolled over Villa? I thought they were excellent in that game, and Dennis really put his head above the parapet, didn't he? A lot of attacking stats, took his goal well, and I thought Sarr was excellent as well. Are you worried at all at Brighton about double Brighton defence?
I am, but I think he's the best 4.5 defender. He's the 4.5 defender with the best fixture in game week 2. So you just play the odds there.
Yeah.
If it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. That's it.
Exactly. I think Brighton are strong enough to sort of keep possession and try and wangle out the clean sheet like they tried to do against Burnley, and then he conceded one against Burnley. So I mean, it's not the end of the world. I thought Luke Shaw was excellent. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think he's underpriced at 5.5. I think he's one of those players that's really, really improved over the course of the year. Like he only got one assist at the start of last season, in the first half of last season, and then he moved on to 5 in the second half. Then he probably got 5 during the Euros, and then during pre-season he's been great as well. So I think he's one that's just really, really raising it, and 5.5 is an excellent value for him. What do you think about captaincy, about Salah? Was it ever a decision for you, or was it just completely obvious with the Liverpool Anfield?
This week, yeah. Fernandes is a really good shout, and we can't forget that a certain Manchester City will be looking to forget game week 1, and I think Norwich are in for a fight because City are hurt, and there's nothing like a wounded animal. The first game at home as well, so I think Manchester City captaincy option is a great differential option should you want to do it, but our good friend on Twitter, FPL Salah, has told me many times that it's very important to stay with the pack early season before you start making these calls. And with Man City, we don't really know who's going to be the one dominating those FPL points just yet. I think so. It's a wait and watch game. Salah at Anfield, and I'm totally in. I think Fernandes is a really good shout because of how good United looked. But there's the home team effect, which we saw in playing game week 1, and then there's the Anfield effect, because Anfield is one of the best atmospheres you can get. I think they'll be totally up for it, not taking chances.
I completely agree. I think it's one we shouldn't overthink, even though Fernandes has got his hat-trick. And as we said earlier, that Man United team might change dynamic with formation, with new players coming back in. We don't know how that's going to affect Fernandes with maybe Sancho starting. We don't know. So I think Salah's the optimal pick.
The argument, though, is that I thought when you're watching both games 90 minutes, United's performance was better compared to Liverpool's performance. But I think that Liverpool midfield dynamic is going to change once Fabinho comes in. I also think Liverpool looked a lot better once Firmino came into the front three. I'm expecting Firmino to maybe play in the front three. That's why I reckon Salah is going to be a good captaincy shot.
I thought Fabinho played in that game. I'm pretty sure I saw him. Maybe he came on the second half or something.
He came on. Fabinho and Firmino both came on in the second half, and I thought Liverpool looked better after they did.
I completely agree. I think I remember tweeting something that the spine of that Liverpool team is just really the enabler for solid performances, streamlined performances. And I completely agree with you about Firmino. The problem with Jota, and you own Jota, so is he on the chopping block for you? I'll come back to that in a minute. But Firmino really enables Salah and Mane to perform, get those FPL points. He's the key that unlocks Salah's potential. Are you a little bit worried about Jota's minutes? Is he going to start 60 minutes every game, or is he going to come on next game? What do you reckon?
Very worried, because I wouldn't be surprised if he plays all 4 in this game as well. But I think Klopp has Chelsea game week 3 in his mind at the moment, and I'm very sure Firmino is going to be playing in game week 3, because that's the kind of game you need Firmino in. Also with Firmino, right, he has a little bit of a down year last year, but he's the kind of player who will just become a little happier when the crowds are around. He kind of has that vibe with the Anfield crowd as well. And when Firmino thinks too much, he's a bad player. But when he's playing instinctively, he's a really good player with his flicks and tricks and all of that. So, I think Firmino is going to play a lot more than I expected him to, which is why Jota's on the chopping block at the moment.
Interesting. Okay, so presumably Benrahma and Antonio are going nowhere after that West Ham performance, but Jota, Tony and Ings are potentially on the chopping block for you. So what are your transfer thoughts for game week 2? Are you going to do anything? Are you going to roll the transfer?
So the team that I have, I currently have 1 million in the bank at the moment, and I kept that 1 million in the bank because I wanted to keep flexibility for a Jota to a Grealish sort of a move game week 2, keeping that home game against Norwich in mind. So the moves I'm considering at the moment are Jota to Grealish or Jota to Greenwood, who I thought looked really good. And like I mentioned, Son is on the top of my watch list at the moment, and that requires a 1.5 million downgrade elsewhere. I mean, so I thought about a trend downgrade. No, not happening. I don't know where else I can find the money. Ings, you have Newcastle at home, so not happening. Ivan Toney has a good fixture against Crystal Palace away as well, but Ivan Toney to maybe a Dennis at 5 million is an option. Should I want to fund that Jota move? So these are the sort of moves that I'm playing around in my head with at the moment.
That's the one that I thought of as soon as you said you needed 1.5. So it's an interesting one. I mean, maybe Dennis is too early to tell, but because it might just be a one game week good performance. But it seems like exciting. And you prefer Grealish over Mahrez, do you?
I don't have money for Mahrez at the moment. Okay. That's the thing. Yeah, and I'm worried about Mahrez's performances. I think he was pretty poor in the Community Shield, and I thought he was fairly average against Spurs as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the chopping block. I'm actually currently at the moment leaning most towards Greenwood because I think he's good until game week 4. Cavani also might travel far for the international, so he might get that Newcastle game in game week 4 as well. So I'm leaning towards Greenwood at the moment, but thinking about Grealish, thinking about Son.
And
thinking about... Holding Jota as well, because the first game of game week 2 is Liverpool versus Burnley. So if we get any sort of early news, any sort of murmurs, then I might not even make a move.
Fair enough. Interesting that you're leaning towards Greenwood. I think he was excellent as well. But do you not think that he's? I know you're saying that he's good until game week 4, but do you think he's more secure for minutes than Jota overall?
After Firmino's performance, yes.
Yeah. I think I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, let's start talking about variance. I want to talk about variance and we'll move on. I've got a little chart here. This is just game week 1 stats. This is how many goals each team scored towards the top and their expected goals across the bottom. And I just wanted to look at this because this basically underlines that a game week in isolation is going to be so unpredictable to a certain extent. There's going to be massive amounts of variance. We've got Man United up there scoring 5 from an XG of 1.6, something like that. And we've also got Man City who have scored 0 goals from an XG of 2. So just a game week in isolation, there's going to be massive variance. Over a longer period, these teams are going to move closer to that orange line. And that's when we can start predicting how a team might perform over the long term. And just wanted to say that, in a game week that is isolated, when you're picking captaincy, when you're picking who's going to be on your bench, you just got to do that's the best for your team, what you think it is, and you can't beat yourself up about the outcome, because if it's a logical thought process in the first instance, then you can't beat yourself up. So for me, I don't have Fernandes. I'm trying to think about it with some rose-tinted spectacles, saying that I got hurt, I got beat up quite badly from making that decision, but I'm going to persist with that decision, and I can't say it was a bad decision initially, even though Fernandes got a hat-trick. I think it was I've just put it down to variance. And Fernandes, if he was going to score a couple, then great. Maybe a goal and assist, then fine. Happy to take that. But I'm going to put it down to a bit of variance, and hopefully long-term, my decision to go without Fernandes doesn't bite me too hard. But if he continues to punish, then I will have to eat humble pie and bring him in, presumably. But I think this chart is interesting in other ways. That West Ham performance, clearly, they've set their cards on the table, haven't they, Pranil? The best XG and, sustainable amount of goals. I think they're an interesting one to watch. Do you think they're going to regress, or do you think that's a sustainable amount that they can score?
Definitely going to regress. I thought Newcastle were very, very open in the second half. So definitely going to regress. But that chart and that West Ham's XG is kind of encouraging for Danny Ings owners, because Newcastle did have some problems in their defense. The name that stands out to me is Everton here, who posted some really good XG numbers for a Rafa Benitez team. I thought they did really well in attack. So definitely want to monitor that one.
Yeah, Richarlison's an interesting one, isn't he? Because pre-season he was said that he was going to be away at the Olympics, he was going to be late back, he wasn't going to be scheduled to play in that first game week, but he clearly had something to prove for Rafa Benitez in that first game, because I thought he was excellent. But you're right. I think maybe their process that they're going to follow with Benitez of trying to get Calvert-Lewin into the game at all possible opportunities is going to increase that expected goal value, which is very encouraging. And we talked about Calvert-Lewin earlier, about how we're eyeing him up as a replacement potentially for Danny Ings, but who has Newcastle, who were very open, as you say. So very encouraging. Anyone else that you'd like to pick out? I think Watford and Chelsea, they scored 3 goals from a lower amount of XG. Again, it's variance, but nevertheless, I think Watford were very entertaining. I think Chelsea were very good as well. That Chelsea team's going to change a lot, as we've been saying, a lot of personnel changes. What do you think about Alonso? Is he something that is just definitely shouldn't touch? I mean, he was part of a move away, a part of the Lukaku deal initially.
The best time to get him was game week 1.
Yeah,
because Chilwell wasn't match fit, and he's got maybe tops 1 game week more. The best time to punt on him was game week 1, and now that's gone. I know a lot of people who were actually looking to punt on Alonso game week 1, and they were a little put off by him playing a lot of minutes in the Super Cup midweek as well. But you forget him now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another thing that surprises me down here is the Crystal Palace worst of the bunch for the number of goals scored, XG, and Patrick Vieira is obviously trying to get them to play more attacking football. What do you think of their performance? Are they missing certain key personnel like Eze that could potentially enhance that? Zaha maybe want to look at in the future?
Yeah, in the future, give them time. And also, let's not forget that Crystal Palace played statistically the best defense in the second half of last season. I mean, that's what a Thomas Tuchel team does, where they don't really give you that much space. They're very solid at the back. So I wouldn't read too much into this game because Chelsea just don't concede chances. Also, I think a big and a vital cog in their new midfield is going to be Gallagher, who couldn't play against Chelsea because he's on loan from Chelsea. I think he's a really good player as well. So I think they'll improve Palace in the second game. And I think against Brentford is a more correct matchup to judge them. I think you don't look at game week 1.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your prediction for that scoreline? Because obviously Brentford were excellent, and they're going to be everyone's sort of favourite second or third team to support because they're lively like Leeds were last season. And then obviously Palace are trying to play more attacking, and it's going to be a more even affair, of course. But what do you see? Are Palace going to try and contain Brentford, or are they going to go on the attack?
I think a little bit of both. I don't think they'll be very attacking. I'm expecting a score draw in that game. I'm not expecting any clean sheets in that game.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. I want to talk about Southampton as well, because we've got a new signing, Adam Armstrong, who took his goal really well at the weekend. Is that someone... Yeah. Are you worried about Southampton in general? Or do you think that their new signing to replace Danny Ings can conjure up some magic for them throughout the season? And he's clearly got some talent.
Yeah, they don't have good fixtures for a while, though. So it's very convenient time to wait, watch, and judge Southampton at the moment. What I do know about their new striker is that he shot a lot. I think he had the most number of shots in the championship. So definitely something to think about. All my friends who watched the championship tell me that he's definitely underpriced at 6 million. So one to watch, especially with us needing money to probably fund a Bruno, Son, and Salah midfield. And
absolutely,
if De Bruyne is fit as well game week 2, then you're thinking about that. Lukaku's coming into play. I think team value is just going to be really important this season. There's too many big hitters. Yeah.
You're saying all of these premiums are going to come back. I don't know which ones. I think that's probably something that we're going to have to determine later on, isn't it? Which premiums are we going to have? Because all of them seem legitimate picks on paper, and that maybe is good for the game in terms of the diversity. Not everyone's going to have the same team, so that's really exciting to think about. Speaking of teams, let's move on to how I got on with Game Week 1. Not nearly as good as you, late riser. 85 points, a rank of 1.6 million, so not the dizzy heights of 95,000, I'm afraid. But I mean, it just goes to show 22 points in it between... my score and your score, 22 points and a massive rank difference. It just goes to show it's early days, and basically Fernandes was the difference between us. So I chose to divide up my money with Son and Mahrez versus the likes of Fernandes and Tony, and it was only really a 10 point 10-point difference, really, if you think about it in that way. So Son rectified it for me with a wonderfully taken shot, and I was off my seat when that happened because I was feeling pretty gloomy until then. I've gone for Tsimikas over Jota, and I think obviously you fancied Jota game week 1, which definitely paid off, but I think in terms of Tsimikas versus Jota, it was it was a draw, wasn't it? They both got a return. I thought Tsimikas was quite entertaining. I thought he was quite attacking as well. I wouldn't expect anything less from a Liverpool fullback. I can give him Burnley at home. I think after that it might be a little bit difficult. What do you think about Tsimikas? Has he got a little bit more life in him than 2 game weeks, or is he done and dusted after that?
No, I think it all. I don't think we've had a proper update on the extent of Robbo's injury just yet. So until we have that, I think he's fine. I would be very surprised to see him playing against Chelsea. To be very honest, I think that game has Milner written all over it. But I'm expecting him to start game week 2.
I guess it depends how well.
A little bit of a doubt if he plays somebody like a Gomez for a physicality against a team like Burnley, but I think Liverpool won't be worried about that. They'll be thinking about attacking Burnley.
Yeah, I guess it depends how well he does if he puts in 2 consecutive good performances. And there was a little bit of a worry with a defensive error towards the end of Norwich, and he was slapped about a bit by his teammates and say wake up a little bit. So he's got a steep learning curve for sure. But if he can continue with those performances, then maybe he's given a chance. Maybe he's given a chance against Chelsea. I know what you mean though. Milner is going to be more containing against maybe a more attacking Chelsea team. It completely depends on Klopp's intention for that game. Maybe he wants to be more attacking. So likewise, I've got Shaw and Alexander-Arnold, similar as you, and Sanchez. I think Sanchez didn't he create a big chance in that game? Did I just hear that? I think your man Bakar sort of quoted that in a tweet, which is incredible. I didn't watch the game, so I didn't actually see, but that's got to be encouraging. Must be a long ball up to Morpie or something. Okay, but yeah, in terms of my personnel in midfield, the elephant in the room is that I don't really have Man United attacking options, and as we've been talking about, they were excellent. So that does worry me against a Southampton side who were a bit lacklustre, but it's not at home. We don't know how Saints are gonna perform. Nevertheless, I am a little bit worried. And Barnes was a little bit of a damp squib, wasn't he? He didn't have a great performance. A little bit worrying. What do you think about Harvey Barnes? Is he a hold?
Yeah, he's a hold because he's got Norwich away in game week 3 as well. So I think you give him 3 game weeks to prove his worth at the moment. I'd hold him for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. If you had the money for a Greenwood at the moment, straight switch, if you had, let's say, 0.5 million in the bank, I'd be tempted to do that because it's with United, it's just not the next fixture. It's Southampton away, followed by Wolves away, followed by Newcastle at home. So it's a good run of 3 fixtures that you're targeting.
This is super interesting because my mindset is always, I think it's slightly different to yours. Now, this is why I wanted to bring up the variance, that you are clearly reactionary. You want to be attacking. You want to do the best. And I'm going, that is clearly variance. I've got to give it more than 1 game week. I've got to give it a chance. I've got to give this team a chance. And maybe that's stubbornness. Maybe that's patience. But it could contrastly be lagging behind in reacting. So Fernandes could punish me further. Not getting a Man United player for Greenwood, for example, could punish me again. But I think it's really difficult decision, and that's why we love FPL. These decisions make our season, and I think I'm probably just going to give it a chance. I'm going to leave this team, probably roll the transfer. I think most people will, but it's just interesting to see that you have a different mindset about attacking some of the key players.
Yeah, I just so the difference is I don't tend to regret too much if I'm making a move. So let's say if I'm selling a player, I'll focus on the player that I bought and what he's doing and what he's done. So the thinking in my head is instead of thinking what can I get away with, the thinking in my head is what can I do to put myself in a greater position to be lucky. And so I see a greater haul potential game week 2 for somebody like a Greenwood. So I'll just want to do something like that. That's just a mindset thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think we all have different mindsets, and that's what makes us different managers. Well, let me just switch over to my team for how I line up for game week 2. And I've got Son and Mahrez in there, and this is potentially where they come good for me. Obviously, Son did well against City, but we've got that Wolves away fixture, and I know you were saying that you liked that fixture because Wolves are probably going to be attacking. Son can be on the shoulder of the last man and potentially get some joy. And I've also got Mahrez there, home to Norwich, and again, he's more of a worry for me than Son because he has had 2 lacklustre performances. He missed a chance 8 yards out, which I screamed at the telly about, and it wasn't great. So that 78-minute sub off by Pep is either he's saving him for Norwich or he's probably punishing him a little bit for a lacklustre performance. What do you think? Is he someone that you think might come good against Norwich?
So I don't know about saving him for Norwich because City at that time needed a goal. And they decided to take a Mahrez off. So that's a little bit telling because of the game state at the point. But if you made the Mahrez bet, you don't do anything with him. Game week 2, you hope and you pray that he starts game week 2 and you put yourself in a position to get lucky. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you bin him game week 3.
Yeah, I probably agree with you. If he doesn't get anything against Norwich, then that's pretty telling, isn't it? And Pep's probably going to think exactly the same. Pep runs his Man City side like an FPL team anyway, doesn't he? So
yeah.
So it's interesting. I think obviously Son's got a great run of fixtures and potentially a captain pick in game week 3 at home to Watford. So he's going nowhere, and I'm going to try and stay strong. But Salah captain for me again is a no-brainer, as we were talking about earlier. Home at Anfield for the first time in a long while. That place is going to be rocking. So hopefully some of the picks that didn't come through for me, like Rafinha and Barnes, maybe get an attacking return this game week. I hope so, because otherwise
Barnes
I might...
Rafinha had a great chance as well at the end of that United game. He just looked a little underconfident, I thought, in that game. Maybe it's just early season nerves or something like that, because a lot of the crossfield balls that also he had in the game, they were a little off. Hopefully he's back on the radar game week 2.
I think it probably is just due to the calibre of the opponent. I thought Man United just ran the show, didn't they? And Leeds didn't really get a look in. Even with Ayling's well struck shot. I mean, we've both got Ayling on the bench, haven't we?
Yes.
So I mean, I was quite happy to see that go in. Obviously, not happy that he's on the bench, but maybe it just goes to show that if you pick a player who had a lot of attacking stats last season, then maybe those attacking numbers start coming through this season. So fingers crossed for that. I think I've got Kufal and Ayling on the bench, just in hope that once Tsimikas becomes a non-option, that one of them can come in and rotate each week and maybe make a 4 million choice for Tsimikas. There seemed to be an abundance of them during this game week, didn't there? And you've got Hoover on your bench. I
do have him on my bench.
I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but do you see him maintaining that starting 11 spot for Wolves?
So when I was picking my 4 million defender, I just saw Hoover's performance in, again, the preseason friendly, and he did really, really well. And I visited the Wolves forum. It's a practice I do just to get an idea of what the fans are thinking, because they're more in touch than us. And about 30-40% of them had him starting, which made me think that, okay, maybe he's got potential to overtake Semedo around game week 4, and Wolves have a great run from game week 4 to 14. So I just took a chance on him. I knew Amati was a 1 week wonder, and I wanted to set my team up for the long term, so I took a chance with him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Vestergaard's come in for Leicester, so probably Amati fails to continue. And I don't think he had a very good game, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, he seems to be done. Was there any other 4 millions that I'm forgetting about?
Livramento, the Southampton guy.
Livramento, yeah.
Yeah. He had a great game as well, apparently, and he's very, very highly rated. He's on loan from Chelsea. So Zofar, my co-host on the FPL Wirepod, he talks very highly of Livramento. So and every Chelsea fan I've spoken to. So that's something to worth monitoring as well.
Absolutely, we can't go without a consistently playing 4 million. So Tsimikas to Livramento could be the shout, depending on Southampton's defensive solidity, but I don't think we can be too choosy on a 4 million defender. So, exactly. So we will wait and see what brings us for game week 2, but hopefully it'll be slightly better for me than I think I'm bottom of most of my leagues with an 85, which sounds pretty bad.
It's a good score. You just move on. I think it's a good score. It's 20 points is nothing.
Exactly. In the grand scheme of things, it's not much.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. Late Riser, thank you so much for joining me. I think it's going to be an interesting game week 2. Let's just say that. But keep us updated with what you're planning. And
before we end this, let's. I just want to ask you. You know about the potential moves I'm making, and you're a Liverpool fan. Do I hold Jota, or do I move to a Greenwood or a Grealish?
So I have quite strong views about Jota. So I wouldn't want to. Convince you the other way.
No, go on.
I think Jota's obviously a great player in the fact that he's a goal scorer, and as you said earlier, he gets into positions where he can be lucky and he can get those 1 or 2 opportunities that he can finish off. But for me, he just doesn't add value to that Liverpool team. Firmino is just excellent, and he's the key that unlocks that Liverpool team. Jota, I just find it difficult to see where he fits in. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me because he's a fabulous player at the end of the day, but he's a fabulous player in his own right. And I think if he plays 60 minutes every game, or if he plays 60 minutes and then subbed off at 60, Firmino comes on, and then Firmino plays 60 in the next game and Jota gets 30, I'm just not 100% sure that I like that too much from Jota. And I think Klopp made a mistake last season of trying to mix the formations up quite a lot when we've had so much success from just keeping it consistent with that front 3. It works so well. So for me, that's why I didn't bring in Jota, but that's probably bias towards my own thoughts. And clearly it was wrong because Jota got on the score sheet. It's just my feeling towards the Liverpool team. And hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. But in terms of your transfer plans... I maybe transferring out Jota ahead of a Liverpool at home Burnley match doesn't make too much sense on the face of it, but long term probably makes sense if we think that Firmino is going to have more of an overriding presence in knitting that Liverpool team together. I do like that Dennis move though, because it depends on your long term view of Tony. Because surely people...
I think Tony deserves a little more time, though. I think he just deserves a little more time.
Exactly. And Tony's clearly a talent from the Championship. We can't change our view on Tony after one game week, right?
Also, I think that Arsenal game, the Mbuemo was the runner and his role was to stretch that Arsenal defense. I think with Palace, Brentford might get a little more potential. More possession. And which might see Tony move a little more central, which is why I'm not sure. And I don't know if I want to take a -4 this early in the season after a good start that I've had.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't have Tony either. And that was basically because I thought the type of goals he scored last season were tap-ins most of all. And I just don't think that Brentford are going to create too many of those this season. He's going to have to adapt and score different types of goals. But he definitely has an eye for goal, doesn't he? You can't take that away from him.
Eye for goal and eye for pass. I think he's a good player. I think he's just a really good player. He looked like Premier League quality on the pitch. Not at all. Didn't look out of place at all. And what I liked is that all the Brentford players, all the runs that they were making, etc., they're all aware of the set sort of plays that they have and the runs that the others are making. And I thought they looked good. So, yeah.
It's interesting. What do you think about the Brentford home environment to away? Because I could probably compare them to maybe a Bournemouth, where the size of that pitch, the intimidation of that crowd, that home crowd, they're a family club, aren't they? But they're a bit more of an intense family club. And I think that passion really reigns through on the pitch. What do you think they might struggle a little bit further away from home?
No, I think they'll be fine. Because they just have a very positive mindset. So my read of that game is I think a few good teams are going to score maybe 3, 4, 5 past Brentford because they weren't really. Arsenal had their share of chances in that game. They just didn't take them. But against the middling teams like a Palace, I think they'll do well and give them a run for their money.
I agree with you. I think it's nice to have a promoted team that really goes for it and doesn't.
I think all 3 of them impressed. I thought Norwich's performance was also really good.
I agree. I think it's going to be an exciting season. I think I can't really pick who might be relegated this season, but it's going to be an interesting one. Well, I think we'll leave it there for the second time, unless you have any more questions for me.
No, I'm done.
Nice one. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me, Leroy, and I will let you get off. You're recording the FPL Wire later, so we'll look forward to watching that, and all the very best for Game Week 2. Catch you later.
Good luck,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.